From the time I was a little girl, I loved stories. So it only made sense for me if somebody asked me what I wanted to do. I wanted to write stories. So for me, what did being a writer meant? It meant novels. But when I actually sat down to write a novel, I found it really hard because all the world was open to me, all the choices, and deciding on one thing often meant saying no to another thing. And I really wasn't experienced enough as a writer and as a storyteller to be able to find the right decision at every fork in the road where a decision must be made. I found I wasn't great at writing novels, at least back then, simply because I was so uncomfortable with saying no to certain ideas. As solopreneurs, we often run into this same challenge. Saying yes to one thing means saying no to countless other possibilities. Or does it? Today, we are going to talk about the different types of solopreneurs. Welcome to the Solopreneur Life Podcast. I am your host, Kathryn Aragon. Learn what it takes to build and scale your own business so you can enjoy the freedom and flexibility that comes with the solopreneur life. We are talking, as I just mentioned, about the different types of solopreneurs that there are out there. There's more than you might realize. So I've got to ask you right now, what type of solopreneur are you? Listen in and we will dig into what the possibilities are. But take a moment right now to subscribe to the Solopreneur Life Podcast so you don't miss a single episode. As a solopreneur, you have so many options. There are e-commerce, knowledge business, coaching, consulting, memberships or communities, services. Think about all of those different options. Which is the right one for you? Well, fortunately, unlike writing a story, you don't actually have to weed out all the others. But even so, once you decide on the type of business you want to run, you will find yourself saying yes to some things and inherently saying no to others. I mean, the yes here means no to all these other opportunities. So there is this idea that, yes, you can have multiple businesses, and yes, you can be doing multiple types of businesses. But the more focused you can be, especially at the beginning, the more success you're going to see. So, especially if you're a new solopreneur, you need to pick one. You need to pick the one that is the best fit for you. So let's start out by looking at all these different opportunities that I just listed off to you. And then we're going to talk about how you can choose the one that's right for you. Let's start with e-commerce because it's what most people think about when they think about a business. You have a physical product, it's for sale, and the wonderful thing about being a digital business, you don't actually have to invest money in a storefront and all that physical stuff that it takes to run a store that people can walk in the door. The little bell going ding-a-ling, so the door opens. That's how I visualize that. You don't have to set up that kind of a business. Starting a business today can be done with just a few dollars. It is really that easy. Shopify, for instance, is a fantastic resource for setting up an e-commerce business. Now, as an e-commerce business, you can create your own products, but you can also be a drop shipper. It's almost like being an affiliate in a way. It's like you actually sell products that aren't yours. You're just the storefront and you stock your store with products that are out there in the world. They're looking for someone to sell them. So many cool opportunities. I had a friend who started a Shopify store based on cats. Do you love cats? Here's the store for you. And it was large. It wasn't even pet equipment, although it could have been. Let's say you were to pick cats as that you want to serve cat lovers. I think a good way to do this is to pick the audience you want to serve. Don't just pick the product first, pick the audience, because many times a product will go out of vogue. Think about the pandemic. Anyone whose product was live events, guess what happened? The bottom fell out. There were no physical events. They just disappeared overnight, right? There was a lockdown. No one could travel and no one could go to an event. So if you were in those two industries, if those were your products, you were in trouble. That was going to, your business just died overnight. But what if you served people who go to events? What if you served people who put on events? They still have some needs. So if you're focusing on the people you serve, you can pivot the product. If you're just focusing on the product, you might find that your market dries up and then you're stuck. You're starting from zero. So I recommend, as you think about this, especially for e-commerce, think about who you want to serve. What kind of people? And now what do they need or what do they love? E-commerce, let's say you pick cat lovers. Well, you have a lot of different options, don't you? You could sell cat beds, cat food, cat care, litter boxes. You could solve a problem. Let's say you invent a new kind of litter box that doesn't smell or that doesn't require the same level of cleaning up because pregnant women, for instance, can't clean out the litter box. What if you solved that problem? You have a product of your own, go develop it and sell it. Probably could do well with that one, by the way. Hint, hint, somebody. The other is you could do like jewelry. What if you did jewelry for cat lovers and put little cats on earrings and necklaces and bracelets and all that stuff? You could do cat collars, jewelry for a pet, for your cat. Anything. Grooming for your cat. Solutions for the cat clawing your furniture. You see what I'm saying? There are so many opportunities if you pick your audience, but maybe saying yes to one of those things means saying no to others. Don't worry about it. Start somewhere. You can pivot as you go. So e-commerce is a really great place to start because it's something everybody understands. When someone asks you, what do you do? Oh, I run this shop online. Go visit it. You can see what I do. See how easy that is? A little bit less easy to explain is a knowledge business. We used to call this information marketing, but I like the term knowledge business because that's kind of what it is. You're selling your knowledge. You're not selling a physical product. You're selling what's up here, your experience, your knowledge, the things that you have figured out. Maybe it's a solution that you have figured out. I'm a pregnant woman. I want to keep my cat in the house, and I can't clean out the litter box by myself. But I figured out a solution for other pregnant women who want to keep their cat in the house. And I'm going to create a huge course around this. I'm going to charge $5,000. No, really, that's not even realistic, is it? But seriously, what if you wrote a little ebook or a little PDF report on how to do this and you sold that even for $10? Guess how many pregnant women there are out there? Many of them cat lovers. You might actually make decent money just with a report, and you can go from there. A knowledge business is as simple as packaging up your knowledge in a way that's consumable. That could be books, that could be courses, that could be short reports. Bob Bly is a great example of someone who has actually generated a ton of money as a knowledge business. He is a copywriter. We'll talk more about services in a minute. But one of his side gigs is he writes books. He now has over 100 books published. And periodically he posts on Facebook, oh, I got a check in the mail for this book that I wrote decades ago. I'm still earning money on it. Isn't that cool? He also, years ago when I just was starting out, he was selling little reports online. And shoot, I bought a lot of them because it was a quick and easy way for me to learn the very simple things I needed to learn to set up my business. If you haven't subscribed to Bob Bly, he's worth following, especially if you're a writer or a copywriter. If not, maybe not. But he throws out a lot of really good tidbits on how to market yourself and how to solve some of the problems that we face as writers and copywriters trying to make money with our skills. But that's a knowledge business. Writing books, publishing a newsletter, maybe it's a paid newsletter, publishing ebooks, things like that. And you're just sharing your knowledge and people are paying you for it. Another idea is coaching. And there are so many different types of coaches. There's a life coach. And by the way, you don't need certification for this. There's a business coach. Maybe you're an executive coach. Maybe you have experience in business, buying, selling, creating courses. You've been in the C-suite. You're ready to retire or at least stop the grind. Now you can be an executive coach and help executives in the C-suite solve their problems. You could be a relationship coach, a fashion coach. I think that would be fun, to go into someone's house and go into their closet and say, nope, 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 you should throw this away. Here's what you should be wearing. That would be so much fun. So lots and lots of different types of coaching. And notice this is also a knowledge business. Why? Because you can have certification. Yes, feel free. But a lot of times you are coaching based on your own experience. You pull in all the different experiences you've had. You say, I can teach people how to do this thing because every time I sit down and do it, it works. That's what I do. That's my writing, and my running a business blog is something I can do with one hand tied behind my back and blindfolded. I can make the blog work as a growth engine for a business. And so it only makes sense for me to coach people or consult with businesses on this topic, which brings us to the next topic, consulting and advising. There's a difference between an agency and a consultant. A consultant doesn't do the work. The agency does. So a consultant is someone who is basically an advisor. You come to me with your problem, and I work with you to tell you how to solve the problem. I may be able to go do research for you. I can connect you with other people, but ultimately, I'm going to give you the strategy. I'm going to give you the answers to your questions, and you're going to go do the work. You can also create a membership community, or like a community website. Sales Hacker has done a fantastic job building a community for salespeople. My business, Solopreneur Life, is a community for solopreneurs and the topic of this podcast. So if you want to grow as a solopreneur, if you are looking for a community, which by the way you need, even if you don't realize it, the Hub is your solution. The Hub is the Solopreneur Life community where we come together. We are all solos. We work doing our own thing, but once a month or more frequently as needed, we come together to the Hub where we can get together and help one another, hang out, and just, find that community, the support that we may not get anywhere else. Because let's face it, we're a weird bunch. We don't fit into the norm, do we? So we need people who understand us. Well, that is a community. You're providing a place for your people to come together where they can learn from one another or learn from you. Maybe you don't necessarily put on a monthly get-together like I do with the Hub. Maybe you're just providing content every week. There are multiple right now $10 communities that they aren't hubs. They aren't places where you come together to hang out, but you get a podcast and a blog post and whatnot every single week. Join a book club. There are so many different ways you can do it. And remember, saying yes to one thing may mean saying no to other things inside your membership. It's the way you structure it. But think about what's easiest for you. We'll talk more about that in a minute. All right, and finally, we're going to come in on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the sixth type of solopreneur business that you might be running, and that is a service business. Now, this really is the easiest one to get started in. I promise you, if you have a skill that other people want to buy, all you have to do is say, hello, I'm available, and people will come, especially as you build authority for yourself in this area. So what are the different types of services you might provide? I'm going to start with writing, copywriting, content writing. Why? Because I'm a writer, and that's how I started out. But over the years, I've grown, so it doesn't always have to stay with the first thing that you did. You can pivot, remember. As needs change, as your interests change, you can shift your business. Because remember, It's your business. You get to do with it what you want. So there are all writing services, but I have friends who are designers and they offer graphic art skills, or they are developers and they code websites and build complicated things like that. There are people who, actually a shopping service, a home chef. Imagine, that would be fun. There are people who, the business is, you come in to someone's home, you give the family a menu, or you take the menu from, you give them options, you go do the shopping, come into their home, cook for them, put the food in the fridge, in Tupperware or whatever, in containers. All they have to do is pull it out and heat it up, and they have good, healthy food. Your service might be helping someone with their health. Like you could, and then this is where it's very similar to coaching. Let's say that you are a coach or a consultant for someone's health journey. You're helping them exercise better, eat better, make better, stay consistent. Again, coaching is a service, but so is actually doing something that other people don't want to do. You could do a lawn service, a painting service. So it can be physical or digital. So many opportunities, right? This is what you have to think about. You have to think about, what kind of a business do I want to run? What makes me happy? What subject matter do I enjoy? What am I passionate about? So how do you choose? Ultimately, you want to look at the intersection of 5 different factors. The first is, what do you like and dislike? That matters a lot to me, actually. Many people put this last because they're like, yeah, but I should look at what makes money. And we're going to, consider that, of course. I always recommend looking at your likes and dislikes and immediately looking at, but is there a market for it? There are many things you may be passionate about that absolutely nobody will buy. And so don't go there. But I want you to start by considering what you like and you don't like, because you have to work this business every day, maybe for the rest of your life. And you need to have a business that you wake up to, you're excited to start your day with. This needs to be fun. It needs to be something that doesn't feel like work for you to really enjoy the solopreneur life. So start with your likes and dislikes. Next, I want you to look at your experience and your training. Why? Because you will succeed more if you have authority. The more authority you have, the more credible you are at what you're doing, the easier it is to get clients. So look at your experience. What can you leverage? Look at your training. The nice thing about training is you can always get more, and you could get more right now. So if there are gaps in your experience, is there training that you can get to fill that gap? And let's again go back and look at the market. Is there a market for this? If yes, keep going. Now look at your skills. Again, you can get training, but if you're naturally good at something, lean into it. I was just talking with someone who is incredibly gifted at humor and speaking. These are 2 things that are so rare, and to have them together. He's a natural at lighting up the room and making people laugh, making people pay attention. Very comfortable on a stage in front of a camera talking to people. He has to hold himself back. But he went into tech. The complete opposite. Why? Because it makes money. Don't consider money at this phase. When you're looking for what type of business you should run, don't think about money first. Think about it at the very end, because honestly, if you are naturally gifted, if you have genius for something, that's your space. You can turn that into gold. You really, really can. You just, as I said, you need to make sure that there are people willing to exchange money for it. But even if that market is very small, if you are going to be able, if you are so gifted at it that you could be the #1 person in that space, you got it. Go for it. You can pivot later if you find that there's not a market for it. But I guarantee you there is probably a way to make money doing what you're so natural at that you think, it's not important. It's just, I just do this. No, that's your area of genius. Lean into it. Other people struggle to do this thing. You do it with your eyes closed and 2 hands held behind your back. Come on. That's your space. Lean into it. Finally, look at your relationships and your network. I've launched my business 3 times. The first time I knew nothing. It's one of the reasons I've put together solopreneurlife.com and this podcast. It's for those people who, like me, they know they want to do this thing. They know they want to create the solopreneur life, but they don't know anything. I had the skill. I even had a little bit of experience as a professional writer, but I honestly didn't know how to build the business, and I didn't have any relationships to help me. So I floundered really badly. I used that experience and I used my knowledge to get a job. After that job, I launched a second time. I'll tell this story in detail another time. But there, ups and downs, up and downs. Last summer, middle of the pandemic, I launched my business for the 3rd time. Only this time, I come in with everything I need, right? I come in with experience. I come in with authority. It's not really a brand new business. I'm just relaunching it. I'm throwing open the door saying, yep, I want all the clients. Only this time I also have a network. The first thing I did was send out a few emails saying, hey, I'm doing this thing. Let people know I'm available. Do you know of anyone who needs my services? I had my first client within a week. It was that simple. I say this every week, and I will say it every week in the future. You may work solo, but you cannot do this alone. You need community. You need people who can see into your blind spots. You need people who can just drop a little hint every now and then and make you rethink everything you're doing. You need people who can help you find your clients. That's what happens when you get your hub, your solopreneur hub. And that's why I launched the hub as the community for Solopreneur Life. You can't do this thing alone. You need your community. So I invite you, please come join us. Not just for me. It makes the community better, but it'll also help you grow your business. Now, I want you, we've talked about 5 things you need, right? You need to look at the intersection of your likes, your experience, your training and skills, and your relationships, because you need a network. But I also want you to think about how fast you need to move. Sometimes, let's say you just lost a job, and you say, okay, fine, I'm tired of being laid off, because that happens sometimes, right? Bad economy, things change, and you're always the first person to get laid off. I say that because that was my father. He was a mechanical engineer, and in the 70s, the economy was just bad. And I guess he must have always been the new guy. And when they needed to cut back, the new guy is the first to go, right? This happens, and it doesn't just happen to engineers, it happens to all of us. So what if you get laid off in the middle of a pandemic and you're like, fine, I'm going to start my own thing. I'm going to be a solopreneur. Now, you've got to move fast, don't you? Because you've got bills to pay. So part of the equation of what do you need to do is with what can you do quickly. If you have a good track record, you already have authority, you could immediately step into consulting or services. So those are a really good place to start. And you want to just get money generating to start. You don't need to worry so much about what is my business going to be? Do I have a business plan? Do I have a desk? You just need to think about starting some income. So start with what's easiest, and then give yourself the freedom to figure out the details later. Just get traction. Other times, it's not about the authority and what can generate income quickly, although that's always a priority. Sometimes it's more about people are always coming to me asking for this. People are always asking for my help with this. People are always asking for my advice on this. Pay attention to these moments, these things that constantly come up because that's your space. Clearly, you are seen as an authority in that space. That's something you can leverage. So if people are constantly coming to you asking for help, you have a services business. If they're constantly coming to you asking for advice, you have a coaching or consulting business. Think about it. All you have to do is start putting a price tag on it and say, you know, I would love to help you, but I just started this business. Can you, would you be one of my first clients? Boom, you have your business off the ground. If you need to move quickly, there are ways you can do it. And sometimes it's just a matter of putting the word out, I just started this thing. I know a man who was like a senior vice president, or he was a division head, something. He was pretty big deal in corporate America. I think it was with a lot of different startups. He was in sales. He quit his job one day, which got a lot of attention. Just him announcing, I quit my job and here's why. Then he had an audience he could work with, and they were ready and eager to hear what he was going to be doing next. So then, at that moment, he built up I left. Aren't you curious about why? And then he explained what he was doing now. And he launched a business just off that attention. If you already have an audience, you have such a huge asset. Tap into that audience. Ask them, if I were to offer you this, or this, would you be interested? You automatically have a business if you have a few yeses, because the truth is you only need 3 clients to have a very solid business. I always recommend 3. If you have one client and you lose that client, you have no business, right? You're scrambling. If you have 2 and you lose 1, you just lost half your income. That's a scary place to be. But if you have 3 and you lose 1, you still have a solid business. You just need to get 1 more to get your income back up to where you're comfortable. 3 is the magic number. So keep that in mind. If you could just put the word out, hey, if I were to offer this, that, and the other thing, would you be interested? You could probably, if you have a good audience, get 3 clients right off the bat. But here's the thing, you have to be able to visualize your business. You don't have to have all the details down right, but whatever you're offering right now, there needs to be some clarity around it. The truth is, if you can visualize it, you can build it. So look at this intersection of your likes and dislikes and all these different elements we've talked about, because that's where your sweet spot is, and you need to lean into it. But I want you to understand, just having an idea is never enough. How do you get started? When you have a business idea, it starts with an idea. Then you're going to run best case, worst case scenarios, because you need to validate your idea yourself before you take it public. Think about, okay, if I were to do this business the way I visualize it, and I only charging this amount of money that I think I can get away with, worst case scenario, I will make this much money. Is that worth the effort? Best case scenario, I earn this much money. That's pretty good. I like that. But will people pay for it? Always run your worst case and best case scenario to validate your idea for yourself. Then do a little bit of research. Figure out, is there a market for it? Is it a viable idea? Can you run with this? Then, now's when you take it to people. I just did this with a new product offering for roofers. And we just had a hailstorm. A roofer came to the door. He asked what I do. I told him, and he was like, oh, I need you. I need you as much as you need me. And I said, yes, I think so too. So we sat down and talked, and I ran my idea by him. And he loved the idea, but he also helped me refine it, because when I offered my original idea, it wasn't quite right. But as I talked with him, I was like, okay, I see how I can pivot this idea. And just as we talked, I said, so it sounds like you need this. And he was like, yes, that would be perfect. How soon can you do that for me? See the difference? You talk to a real person. You have a client because they're interested. At that point, you adapt, you make the offer, test it. Test it with this first client. Make sure you get all the kinks worked out. Optimize, and then announce it as a new product offering. It's really that simple, guys. The goal is, as a solopreneur, to create a business you love. That means doing work you love every day. If you hate your job and you quit at your job because you hate it, don't offer that service. That's so silly. Don't offer work that you don't want to do. Offer stuff that's easy for you, stuff you're passionate about. If there is an industry that you are passionate about, go into that industry. You can get clients in that industry and offer coaching and consulting. You can create a product. You can do all the stuff in this one niche because you're passionate about it and the people you would be serving. So always start there. And then look again at the intersection of your likes and dislikes, your experience, training and skills, and relationships. If you look at those 5 elements, you are going to find your sweet spot, and you are going to build the type of business you love most. Next week, we will continue to talk about what it takes to succeed as a solopreneur. So subscribe now to Solopreneur Life Podcast wherever you tune in, or visit us at the solopreneurlife.com website. The solopreneurship can be challenging if you're going it alone, but you don't have to go it alone. Join us in the Hub. It is the perfect place for solopreneurs to support one another, help one another, and encourage one another so you can build the business you truly want to build. That's it for today. I'll see you next week. In the meantime, stay awesome.